What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, we got to go down memory lane for Spider-Man 2. The PS2 version is actually specifically the one we're going to talk about, although I do want to go over its history and the multitude of versions that this game has, each one being pretty darn different, but it was the console one, right? PS2 oftentimes looked at, but the others as well. The home consoles, these were the best versions of the game, and this is what would be considered the landmark, for superhero games and just really pushing that medium forward. Meanwhile, they had a PSP version, they had a Game Boy, all these different versions. Not very great, at least in terms of the reception at the time. They sold extremely well, and this game was very, very profitable over like a 3, 4, 5 year period of time. Extremely, extremely successful. But okay, I want to go over a little bit of my story with this game before we jump in, and I feel like I played this game before. However, there's a couple of things to kind of go over. I swear I played it on PC. Now, that doesn't exactly seem possible, but I do remember fighting Rhino. Now, I don't know if Rhino is in the PC version, but I remember that specific fight, and I remember playing a Spider-Man game, but I swear it was on PC. I don't know actually if it's this game, so if the title happens to read that I played this game for the first time, don't freak out, because although I feel like maybe I did, there's also just as much of a possibility that I've never actually played this game before. So I jumped in. Now, I've heard so much about this game. Okay, whether I did play it when I was like 8 years old or whether I didn't. And I don't even think I played it back in 2004. Maybe I did. I guess I would have literally been 8 years old at the time. But I did play recently. We actually made a video on this channel. I played the original game. So I played Spider-Man, I believe, 2002. And, there were some things that were good about it. There were some things that were really, really bad about it. It was a product of its time. I think we can all kind of say that. I don't think it's necessarily aged all that well, but how many games from 2002 have aged well? This game, though, let me just say something right now. Whether I've played this game before or not, this game took me by surprise. This game is actually extremely, extremely cool. And having played these games, which I don't think many people play, a 2002 and a 2004 game back-to-back, I kind of did, but I think that's rare. Playing them back-to-back shows you the unbelievable jump in pretty much, I'd say, every single aspect of this game. This game shocked me. As soon as you fire it up, and not even actually when you fire it up, it's as soon as you start moving around and you realize, oh my God, the web swinging is different. Like, it feels not only different, but it feels better. Everything in this game feels better. Now, I believe actually the statistic or the record for this game, this was the first superhero game to actually do an open world thing. They took inspiration from Grand Theft Auto 3, but in terms of superhero, this was maybe the first time they did it. So that, I did not know that, and a bravo to this game. Now, it's not the most robust of all time, but let's be honest with you, putting this thing down and saying, okay, let's literally see how this thing actually works, right? You got the major CGI cutscenes, which, may I say, actually look really, really good. We talked about that in the PS2 version. There's not many. There's maybe like, oh my God, maybe 10 minutes or less of like the highest quality cutscenes in the first game. But when they do it, it actually, for 2002, for 21 years ago, looks really good. This game, oh my God. I mean, okay, you're not going to get it confused for a game that comes out right now. But you think about it, I mean, 2004, Uncharted, a personal favorite of mine. Uncharted was 2007. We're only a few years behind when the PS3 and Xbox 360 comes out, and all of these very cool, or at the time kind of revolutionary games released for them. We're not that many years behind it if you think about the gaming history, I guess, of it all. But the CGI cutscenes in this game are spectacular, and they are a lot more in line. In fact, they are almost one-to-one of the movie. So I find really awesome about this game, and I think it's what most people really respect about it, and I can think about this even now. I think this is maybe what's aged the best of the entire game. Not only does it do its best to retell at least the major marks of the movie, this is no movie tie-in game. I think that's what it makes it so special. This is not just, and in fact, the history of this game is they were given the script for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, and they realized pretty early that they were not going to be doing a one-to-one thing. They actually said, this is not going to work. This is not going to fly. Doing it one-to-one, it's just not going to be a good product. And they're right, because I was actually thinking this, playing the game, seeing all the big moments in it. If you just did the movie, I agree with them. I mean, I'm agreeing with them 19 years later, but there's no way that would have worked. So I'm very glad that they chose to not do that. And what became of that is why I think people like this game so much. Mysterio, I mentioned Rhino, a thing that is engraved in my mind. But specifically, I mean, to take a second here with Mysterio, Black Cat, holy God, like they are massive, massive arcs. Black Cat appears in this thing like for 60%, 50% of the game. You chase her multiple times. She brings you to different areas and talks you through kind of different situations. Mysterio is a multi-stage, multi-level kind of thing that really evolves, and he changes, and what you have to do, the objectives and the boss fights with him. Oh my God, like it really, really evolves. And him and Black Cat, I think those two specifically, they are massive, and obviously they're nowhere to be seen in the movie. So what they managed to do with nailing what they had to do with Spider-Man 2's movie. They only changed a few things. Like I think of the train, stopping the train. You do not stop the train in the same way, Tobey Spider-Man stops the train in the movie. Fine, it's okay. And there's a couple changes, throughout that as well. But for the most part, they nailed what they needed to by using different kind of versions of cinematics. Even like when you go and you pop in on MJ and you say, hey, MJ, like I'm not really around so much and I'm sorry about that. It doesn't look good, but it doesn't look like absolutely awful. Oh, but now would actually be probably a good time. I mentioned MJ. I just tried to like recite a line by Tobey Maguire. The voice work. So, in the first game, you think of maybe Bruce Campbell as somebody who pops out, and obviously he returns, and he's as cocky as ever, and the meta-ness is just as good, right? Because he knows this is your second go-around with all this stuff, so that's really special. But everybody actually does a really good job. Even, I would say, Tobey Maguire. In the first game, I thought he did fine. They even had commented in the first game, like they wrote some really wacky lines for him to kind of recite. They were happy with that product. In this game, like, I actually think the voice acting is really good. A lot of the main cast is acted by the cast from the movies, but I think specifically because you're going to hear Tobey Maguire talk more than maybe anybody else, I think he does a pretty okay performance. Like I'm very happy with what we got here. I think the writing is a lot better, but that follows course, right? Like everything in this game, the CGI cutscenes, the normal cutscenes, matching the movie and doing that really well, expanding upon things that weren't even in the movie and making that basically half the game. That is extremely well. But then, I mentioned in the beginning, the impact of the open world. Oh my God. Again, that's the first thing you really experience, right? Like you get into the tutorial or like the first mission and you're swinging around and you're realizing, oh my God, the controls are so much better. He moves so much better. The world, it's tough because you look at the game and you say, well, okay, it doesn't look very good. But again, like playing it right after 2002 and being able to just kind of feel it, right? Feeling the controller, it is unbelievable. Number one, I guess how good the world looks compared to the first game. And they did this in like 2 years. And number two, how good it feels. The web swinging in this game is so much better than the first game. And it's also just like really solid. Covering Marvel's Spider-Man 2 as much as I have, and people talking about some web swinging mechanics of the past, there's some pretty cool things that you can do in this game in terms of stopping yourself with both hands and kind of being able to like reverse yourself around. A lot of small, I'm not going to say this one's better. The web swinging in this game is better than Marvel's. In my opinion, it's absolutely not. However, there are some elements in this game that are really refreshing where it's like, wow, that's not even in a game 19 years older than it. They don't even have some of that stuff. So again, nobody's going to fool me into thinking that this game is better in the web swinging, but it's actually pretty okay. It doesn't control like perfectly, but again, it kind of catches you off guard with how okay it is. Like when you kind of swing into a wall and you start climbing, or just climbing in general, climbing in, I guess climbing literally anywhere, right? Like on the ceiling, on a wall, anything. In the first game, was a nightmare. Like I could not do the stealth missions because I could not be stealthy because I could not climb. This game, again, I wouldn't call it good, but it's unbelievable how much better it is than the first game. You think a lot of the side content, when I am recording this, I had tweeted earlier today and I asked people, what are some things that you think about or, you remember when you think of this game, Spider-Man 2? And a lot of balloons, here's the theme that I kind of got from my community when I put this on Twitter, being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Now, there are some odd ones, like the things that you have to kind of respond to of people trying to end themselves, or some pretty drastic things that are going on in this city. There's a lot of crime, there's a lot of robberies, there's a lot of balloons that are and nobody can get their hand on a balloon, and if they do get their hand on it, they let go way too easily, right? There's a lot of problems in this version of this city, but Spider-Man is there. So again, like balloons, I think, like, ironically, is what people had said the most. But I think the idea that I got, and even playing it, like, you kind of are that friendly neighborhoods, but you're going around. They're not all that dynamic, but they're dynamic enough, especially for the time. They're repetitive, sure, but the combat is better. So even when you have a side mission where somebody's being robbed and you have to kind of stop them, or you have to jump onto a car, jumping onto a car is not so easy because, again, the web swinging is not the most responsive to you, but it's good enough. The combat is way, way better than the first game. It was, I don't even know. Like, you had to fight quite a bit in the first game. Along with stealth, it was also something that I really couldn't do. In this game, I could do it so much better, and it's a lot more fun. Again, a little repetitive, but you can upgrade yourself and all that. Everything in this game, I think, is at least moderately fun. And again, considering the improvements we had with Spider-Man 1, and considering, again, you got to put yourself back in time, and I try my best. Sometimes I fail. I'm not going to say I'm good every time, because I'm not. I really think if you put yourself back into 2004, you're going to think this is one of the greatest games of all time, and I think that's why people do think it. You look at some of the kind of, not records, but some of the accolades, right? Some of the things that people, I guess, talk about with this game. This is regarded as one of the best PS2 era. This is a game that catapulted superhero games. You could argue, like, do you get an Arkham Asylum, which is years at this point? It's years later, right? 2009, this is 2004. So you got 5 years left until you get Arkham Asylum. Do you get that if you don't get Spider-Man? Arkham Asylum is, I don't even know. Do you want to call it open world? Like, there's several areas that are kind of interconnected. You can go back. Spider-Man's, I would say, even more of like an open world feel. It did so much. It did a lot for the, the genre of superhero games. It deserves, like, an applause. It really does. So I'm really glad that I played it. Again, I don't know how well it's aged, but I think if you think back to that era, especially if you're kind of like me and you're into the kick, or you're preparing, let's say, for Marvel Spider-Man 2, and you went back and you replayed some of these Spider-Man games, that's when I think you feel its impact the most. When you're playing some of the other ones and you say, okay, nostalgia is powerful, and I think that's another part of it, right? Something that I don't even necessarily have with this game, because I think I played it, but I also don't know if I played it. Maybe I played the wrong version of it. Nostalgia is not really there for me with this game, but other people, it's their childhood. We mentioned that when I talked about the first game, Spider-Man 2002. People grew up on that game. That was one of the first games maybe people ever played. That was maybe one of the first Spider-Man games, or the first Spider-Man game people ever played. And I think it's even more heightened with this game. I think you could say those same things, but even more for this game. So I'm glad I played it, if nothing else than to kind of see the evolution, the amount of stuff that they were able to do, and the leaps and bounds they took over the first game in just a few years. And one last thing, again, this is another example. The release is a little kind of foggy. Well, number one, it released so many different times and so many different dates and stuff, but I believe the first time it released was June 29th. Funny enough, my birthday is June 28th, so it released one day after my 8th birthday, so that's fun. And then Spider-Man 2, the film, came out a day after. And, I kind of, went right by it earlier in this video when I said, they got the script. Let me just throw that out there. As I said in the first game's video, I love it when that happened. Like, we are long past the era where that can happen. But, we talked about Spider-Man 2002. That game released a while before the movie did, and they knew all the stuff, beforehand. And you think of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, that released before and that had movie scenes in the game. So, and I played that. That was the game I played when it first came out. So that era is just so weird in, like, a good way. It's so special because you had games based off of movies that literally would tell the story, and, like, the ending of Doc Ock and all that, like, that's in the game. Very well done, may I say. So, all that stuff is in the game, and the game technically releases before the movie. They knew the stuff. Imagine that now. It'd get leaked. It would all get leaked. Like, not only would your game probably get leaked, but also then they would know about the movie, and then the movie would get leaked, and Hollywood, I don't think, would be having that, right? So, just a different era, literally a different time, that those kind of special, like, odd things, it could literally never happen. Now the movie tie-in games we get are, okay, not to say they've always been good because there's so many god-awful ones. But a lot of the ones we get now are also like absolutely terrible. They're not even based off the movie. They're sometimes like, I don't know, top-down stupid games. They have nothing to do with the movie because if you, again, got leaked or whatever, you'd be ruining the movie. Hollywood wouldn't have it. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think about Spider-Man 2. I know there's a lot of other old Spider-Man games. I think I'm done for now. I've played a lot of old Spider-Man games leading into Marvel's, I should say, Spider-Man 2. Maybe as time goes on, the channel has a long time to go, I think, before I call it. So I will go back and we'll play some other Spider-Man games for sure in the future. Let me know in the comments which old Spider-Man games you'd like to see me play. Thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.